Hello and welcome to the presentation on Windows Client, Windows Server and Microsoft Office licensing. My name is Vicky Lee and I will be taking you through this presentation today. In this presentation we'll be running through just some general information to begin with, then focusing on Windows 7, Office 2010 and finally Windows Server 2008 R2. So let's take a look at the general information to begin with. First of all, let's think about the different ways to buy a license. There are four key ways nowadays that you can purchase a license. The first method is the full package product license, where basically you go to retail and buy your boxed product. Typically one box equating to one license, though there are exceptions to that rule. Then there's your OEM license, which is a license that you're purchasing with a brand new computer. So you buy your new computer, that would come with your OEM copy of Windows 7 installed on it. And that software is tied to the machine that it has been purchased on, so it does live and die with that machine. Next, there's your online services, where you are going for technology that is hosted by Microsoft as opposed to actually installing and running that software on-premise. And finally, purchasing through volume licensing, where there are a number of different volume licensing agreements available for customers to purchase through. So the usage rights that you have with your software do vary depending on how you've purchased them. And these are all laid out in a number of different documents. So if you buy through full packaged product, there's a document known as the Retail Software License Terms, which dictate what you can and cannot do with that full packaged product software. And the agreement that the end customer has is with Microsoft. If you purchase an OEM license, you have basically taken out an agreement with the OEM or system builder. And the document that lists what you can and can't do with that software is known as the Microsoft Software License Terms. Finally, if you've bought through Microsoft volume licensing, you've got an agreement with Microsoft, and the product use rights document is the document that specifies what you are and are not allowed to do with that software. Support for the software is provided in different ways depending on how you've actually purchased the software. So Microsoft provides support for the full package product software. The OEM or system builder provides support for any OEM licenses. And if you've purchased through volume licensing, there are various levels of support that customers can purchase. Or if you have purchased software assurance, there is a support benefit within there too. Now, there are a number of security devices that come with software to help customers ensure that they have purchased genuine software. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we can see some images of the Certificate of Authenticity, or the COA. Now, this is a hologram sticker, which when you purchase a new computer, for instance, with an OEM copy of Windows 7 on that machine, that COA relating to that piece of software and that license would need to be adhered to that computer in a visible location. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see that we've got images here of the CDs, which have an edge-to-edge hologram on them. And the image on this CD does vary based on the type of software and when it was actually sort of created. Now, all of these are here to help customers check that they have actually purchased genuine software. But if they really are unsure, they can go up to the How to Tell website, which is listed at the top of the page, and they would then be able to see what their COA should look like, what their edge-to-edge hologram CD should look like, and would be able to test out to see whether they had actually purchased genuine software. So finally, in this section, let's think about installation and activation. So when you have purchased a piece of software and you want to install that software on your computer, you will need to provide a product key, and that product key is supplied with the media for full package product and OEM licensing, and comes in the form of a volume license key if you're purchasing through volume licensing. And what the product key does is it basically unlocks the code and allows you to install the software. So if you don't have that key, or you don't have the correct key, you would find that you're not able to install the software on your machine. Once it's been installed, some software then requires activation. And really the whole point of the activation is to ensure that the product key that's been used is genuine and hasn't been used on more machines than the product use documents allow. So you will find that all full package product and OEM products do need to be activated, and this can be done either over the internet or through telephone. But you will see also that some OEMs or system builders will pre-activate for their customers. Now, the activation technology has also been included in volume licensing for Windows 7, Office 2010 and Windows Server. And there are two ways of doing this activation. You can either use the multiple activation key method, or what people call MAC, or the key management services. And the method you use really depends on how many licenses you are actually activating and what software it is you're activating. But the license keys that you would need to activate against are obtained from the Volume Licensing Service Centre. And once you've gone through and done that whole activation process, again, it will prove that the software you've purchased is genuine and will allow the end users to carry on working with that software. Okay, so we have finished the general information, and what we're going to do now is move in to look at the licensing of Windows 7. But before we go into the specifics of that, one thing I do want to sort of highlight is the fact that as it is our client operating system, Windows 7 is just licensed per device. So that's every device that is running Windows 7 will need a license. So Windows 7, as hopefully you know, is the client operating system, and it does come in a number of different editions. You'll see from the slide here, some of them are aimed at the home user and some are aimed at the business user. So for instance, the starter edition of Windows 7 is the edition that's aimed to go on small form computers such as netbooks. The next main edition for the home user would be the Home Premium edition, and it's important to bear in mind that the Home Premium edition does contain all of the functionality of the starter edition plus the extra sort of Home Premium functionality. The next edition up functionality-wise is Windows 7 Professional, which is the main sort of business user edition that customers will purchase. And then finally, Windows 7 Enterprise and Ultimate are the two fully loaded editions, but one, as you can see, aimed at the home user and one at the business user. So when you think about the channels through which you can purchase these licenses, if we look at the home user editions, they are all available through OEM, and then Home Premium and Ultimate are also available through full package product. If we look at Professional, you'll see it is available through all channels, so volume licensing, OEM and full package product. So this is actually a great edition for any type of user. And the Enterprise edition is a software assurance benefit, so you would purchase that by purchasing Windows 7 Professional and then putting software assurance on top of it. So let's take a moment to look at the Enterprise edition of Windows 7 and see what functionality it has on top of the Professional edition. So you'll see at the top a list of the different functionality. We've got BitLocker and BitLocker to go, which is the drive encryption technology. We have things like direct access and branch cache, federated search, which is an enhanced search technology allowing you to search your data held in to different locations. We've got the multilingual user interface, which basically allows you to have one image of Windows 7 covering all of the languages that you might want to use inside of an organisation. Also, we've got the extra rights to 4 virtual operating systems, the rights to use the Ultimate edition of Windows 7 if you so desire, and the rights to purchase MDOP, which is the Microsoft Desktop Optimization Pack. Now if we just look at a few notes by channel, if you purchase Windows 7 through full package product, you can either purchase a full version or you can get an upgrade version if you do already have an earlier version of Windows. If you go through OEM licensing, it is just the full version only, and pre-installation is mandatory, so as I say, you must have it pre-installed on a new computer. And you do get certain downgrade rights, so you do get to downgrade to Windows Vista, or for a limited time you will be able to downgrade to Windows XP. Through volume licensing, it is an upgrade only license, so there must be an underlying operating system on the computer for the volume licensing sort of version of Windows 7 to be installed. And again, you do get a very good downgrade right, so you can downgrade as far back as Windows 95, but you must downgrade with the corresponding edition, so you must edition match. Now, Windows 7 does require product activation, as we've talked about already, and a customer does have 30 days in which to do that activation process. And they will get sort of a persistent notification reminding them that they have got to go through and activate that software. If they don't activate, they will find that the desktop background will turn black and that not all of the downloads are available, so all of the updates and things like that, they won't be there. Only the critical updates will be downloadable. Any of the optional stuff won't be. If a customer does want to use Windows 7 Enterprise Edition, as I've already mentioned, it is a software assurance benefit, so they would need to add software assurance onto their Windows 7 professional license. Now, there are restrictions on when they can do this, so if they've bought that license through volume licensing, they can only do that at the time of purchase, so they would need to make that decision when they're buying their Windows 7 professional license to buy software assurance. If they've purchased through OEM or full package product, they do have a 90-day window of opportunity in which to purchase the software assurance. Do bear in mind with the OEM licensing, adding software assurance may give you extra rights, but that original underlying OEM license is still tied to the hardware that it was installed on. But the software assurance itself may be transferred to another machine if required. Right, so let's move on now to look at Microsoft Office 2010. And again, as a quick reminder, Office 2010 is our suite of desktop applications, and again is licensed per device, just like Windows 7 is. Office does come in a number of different editions, and the editions do vary depending on how you have actually purchased the product. So for instance, if you've gone through the full package product, you can get the Home and Student, Home and Business and Professional editions. And really, as ever, if you want to use Access, you would need the Professional edition to do so. The Home and Student edition is quite special because it does allow you to install your software on up to 3 non-commercial machines in the same household, which is rather lovely. The OEM editions of Office do include the same editions as you can get through full package product, plus the Starter edition, which is a free edition and has reduced functionality Word and Excel on it. Now, if you are buying a brand new computer and you are going to get your sort of OEM image of Office on that, how it can work is by using this OEM pre-installation kit. Now, this is a kit that OEMs can download and install onto the machines when they're actually selling them. And that kit contains the Office Starter, Office Home and Student, Office Home and Business and Office Professional editions. So the customer comes along and they buy their new machine that is preloaded with Office 2010. Now, if they want to actually use Office, they then do need to purchase a PKC, which is the product key card, relating to the edition of Office that they would like to use. That then basically licenses them to use that software and they can go ahead with that particular edition. That doesn't come with media, and if the customer does want media, then they can purchase a full package product of Office and use that to unlock the image as well. Okay, so when it comes to buying Office through volume licensing, there are 2 main editions. There's the Standard edition and the Professional Plus edition. So if we look at Standard, we can see it consists of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Outlook with Business Contact Manager and Publisher. So quite a nice edition. And you do have access to the web apps for Word, Excel, PowerPoint and OneNote here, which is browser-based access into those applications. The Professional Plus edition does have the whole of Standard, but on top of that has Access InfoPath Communicator and SharePoint Workspace. SharePoint Workspace being the rebranded Groove, so that's obviously been rebranded and updated with the new release. Professional Plus is also the edition that integrates with our other server products. So if you want rights management or you want instant messaging and present support coming through or integration with SharePoint from all of the Office products, then you would do that through the Professional Plus edition. Now, when you buy Office 2010, the rights that you get do vary depending on how you've purchased that product. So if you purchase through full package product, for instance, you can purchase both the full version of the software and upgrades if you are using an earlier version. You do also get the rights to install the software on more than one machine. So imagine that you've bought Office Professional, you would actually be allowed to install that on a desktop and a laptop as long as you are the main user of both of those computers. But what you cannot do is you cannot separate the Office components and install them on different devices. Now, if you've purchased through OEM, it is a full version, and as ever, it must be pre-installed. If you do want to purchase software assurance, you can do that for Office 2010 professional licenses. And if you do add the software assurance, that does make both the license and the software assurance transferable, so they can be moved to another machine. If you've purchased through volume licensing, again, you would be buying a full version here. You do get downgrade rights, which means that you can use an earlier version of the software, but it is suite specific. So for instance, if you have bought Office 2010 Standard Edition, then you would only be able to downgrade to the Standard Edition. You can, however, downgrade single applications within a suite. So let's say, for instance, with Access that you needed to use an earlier version of Access, but nothing else, you would be allowed to downgrade just that one product. And again, you are not allowed to separate the components of Office and install them on different devices. Okay, so that's Office 2010 done. So our last product to look at is Windows Server 2008 R2. So this is our server operating system. Now, Windows Server does come in a number of different editions aimed at sort of different sizes of organisation and then more specialist needs and requirements of the organisations. When we think about the different editions, again, they are available through the different channels. So if you look, for instance, Foundation is only available as OEM, whereas Standard, Enterprise and Web Server are available through all three channels, so full package product, OEM and volume licensing. And if we look at the high-end editions over on the right-hand side, they are only available through OEM and volume licensing. Now, when we think about the rights by channel against what you may or may not do with your Windows Server, if you purchase through full package product, it is a full license only. There are no upgrades available. If you're buying through OEM, it's now optional pre-installation. So our other OEM products all had to be pre-installed on a new computer. This time it's optional, but it must be sold alongside a fully assembled server. You do get quite good downgrade rights with Windows Server, so you can go back and you can use earlier versions of Windows Server, but as ever, you must be edition specific. So the Standard Edition will only downgrade to Standard Editions. Enterprise editions, again, will only downgrade to the equivalent editions. If you do add software assurance to your Windows Server OEM license, as with Office 2010, the license and the software assurance do then become transferable. If you buy Windows Server through volume licensing, again, it is a full version only that you will be purchasing there. No upgrades available. Now, when we think about Windows Server, it does have a few different licensing models dependent on the edition that you are actually purchasing. So most of the editions of Windows Server follow just our normal server and CAL licensing model. So imagine here that this is Windows Server Standard Edition that we're running on 3 servers in our network. We would need to purchase 3 Windows Server Standard Edition licenses. Then for our users who are accessing the services of that server, for the users that are using multiple devices, we would buy them a Windows Server User CAL. And for the machines that are being used by lots of users, we would purchase a Windows Server Device CAL. Again, if we have non-employees of the organisation accessing the services of our server, we would also purchase them Windows Server CALs. So that's really the normal server CAL licensing model. But what other models are there available for Windows Server? Well, there is also processor and CAL licensing, and this is really the high-end editions that follow this. And this is where you do need to count up the number of physical processors that are sitting in your server. So in our example here, you can see our servers all have 4 processors. So we would purchase a server license for each of those 4 processors, plus user or device CALs. So you are having to purchase here both processor licenses and user or device CALs. So which licensing models do our editions actually sort of follow? If we look on the left-hand side, we'll see Standard and Enterprise Edition follow our normal server and CAL licensing model. Whereas Foundation is just a server license only, no CALs required. as is Web Server and the High Performance Computing Edition. So they are all licensed just with the server license only. The Data Center Edition and the Itanium-based Systems Editions both follow this processor and CAL licensing model. And it would be good to note here with the Data Center Edition that there is a minimum purchase for a server of 2 processors. So you would have to purchase at least 2 licenses for those processors. There is an external connector license available for Windows Server. So if we think about our non-employees, those external users, as I said, if there's a few of them, you could purchase them CALs, enabling them to access the services of your server. If there's a large quantity or an unknown quantity, then you would go for the external connector license, and you would buy one for every server that those users are accessing, and that would license them then, or license an unlimited number of external users to access the services of that server. So as we draw this presentation to a close, let's just have a quick review of what we've done. We looked at some sort of general information about the products that we're looking at today. And then obviously we went in to focus on the licensing details for Windows 7, Office 2010 and Windows Server 2008 R2. So that concludes this presentation. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it and wish you the best of luck when taking the associated assessment. Goodbye.